Country faces a drug epidemic with a rise in overdoses tied to fentanyl and opioids. Our next guest is looking back at another drug crisis in America. Journalist Donovan X. Ramsey joins us now. He's the author of the new book, When Crack Was King, A People's History of a Misunderstood Era. Also with us for the conversation, the president of the National Action Network, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, our good friend, the Reverend Al Sharpton. Good morning to you both. Donovan, congratulations on the book. When you say misunderstood era, what do people get wrong about this crack epidemic in America?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I really think that people misunderstand first what crack was, and people really have no clue of the outsized impact that it had in shaping our society. Both ideas of inner cities, our criminal justice system, and the very vulnerable people who ended up, addicted to crack.
Where does this era begin for you as you dig into the history of it and its long legacy that continues today in terms of sentencing and policing and everything else? But how do you define the beginning of the crack era?
That was one of the hardest things really to do when it came to writing this book, was to figure out when exactly did the crack epidemic start. And I really kind of concluded that you had to go back to the devastation after the civil rights movement, after the decline of the Black Power movement, all of the disaffection, a word that we use often now when it comes to other sort of addiction trends. But people in cities, Black and brown folks in particular, were disaffected after Dr. King was assassinated, after Malcolm X was assassinated, and we didn't have a whole lot to show for all that effort of the civil rights movement. That's where I think the real seeds of the crack epidemic were planted.
Rev, you lived through this here in New York City, early days throughout it. You saw the ravages of the crack epidemic. What was it like to be on the front lines of it, particularly in New York City in that time?
It was frightening because you were seeing people that could literally go in the corner store and buy crack over the counter. So when we were telling people this was going on, they didn't believe us. So one of the things we did, I had a youth group then called National Youth Movement, is we got the press and said, go inside with us, just one of you. Have a kid put $5 on the counter and they give them crack. That's how much it was accessible. And it was clearly something, and Donovan says he was aware that. I didn't even know it. He wasn't even born at that time. But it was clearly something that had overtaken our community.
Donovan, you were born in 1987. That's really just past the beginning of the crack epidemic. Of all the negative impacts that it has had on our culture as a country, where would you rank the negative impact that it perhaps indeed have on policing and law enforcement?
Yeah, as you point out, as somebody, raised in the 80s and 90s, I had no idea just how much our law enforcement system had been shaped by the crack epidemic. Policies like stop and frisk, when it came to just the entire tactic of broken windows policing, those are crack era policing tactics that I thought were normal. So, my life growing up in a neighborhood that was hard hit by crack was dealing with the fallout of seeing people be addicted, dealing with the violence that accompanied the drug trade, but also dealing with over-policing that made me feel even less safe.
Donovan, Mika has a question for you. Mika?
Well, I just was curious about your personal reflections on the process of putting this together. Reading your interview with the LA Times, you said at times it felt like the story was going to kill you. Like it was so hard to try and put the crack epidemic into words. Can you tell us about that? Absolutely.
The reason why I think that a book like this, a authoritative history of the crack epidemic that really incorporates people's narratives, hasn't been written yet, is because it's ugly stuff. It really revealed to me some of the nastiness about our failure to live up to our social contract as a nation. It revealed to me lots of cracks in our social safety net, but also the ways that we treated each other, that we really treated the most vulnerable people at a period where they really needed help. And by the end of writing this book, I was a nervous wreck from having listened to hundreds of stories of people who were addicted and who sold crack, and the mayor of Baltimore, Kurt Schmoke, who had really tried to pull back his city. And I'm still kind of shaken by what I learned, but I hope that when people read this book that they're able to also process some of their own memories of the period and some of their own feelings about some of these really big issues.
And I think it's also important what you said, that we understand the context of today that came out of that, because I remember we would go and paint red X's to show they're selling crack in there. And we had pushback from some of the people. And then when they came with this new kinds of laws, as a result of crack, as a result of Len Bias, a basketball star, dying, many of those in the civil rights community, which I was a part of at the time as a young youth leader, they were for these mandatory sentences and for these hard laws where you'd get mandatory times, 5 years if you were found with crack, but loose cocaine, which you needed to make crack, no mandatory laws. I think that what you were talking about, where we see these kinds of things now, started in the whole crack epidemic period, and over-policing and overreacting is undercuts the community as bad as the problem itself.
Yeah, and we're still living with it, right? So, you know, under the Obama administration and the Department of Justice under Eric Holder, that they were able to reduce that 100-to-1 sentencing disparity to 18-to-1. But the fact that, you know, we have so much more compassion for drug addicts, the fact that we know so much more about crack than we did now, and that disparity still exists, suggests that there's still some unwillingness, that crack still looms large in the imagination enough that we haven't become fair as it relates to how we sentence for those substances.
Do you see a connection, Donovan, to what we're seeing today with opioids, with fentanyl, the latest drug epidemic in this country? Have we learned as a country from the crack epidemic how to treat people differently who are addicted to drugs?
I don't think we have. And that's a part of why I wrote this book, that, you know, you could look at a year ago when the Biden administration decided that they wanted to do some funding for harm reduction programs, and they were going to fund kits that included things like Narcan, which is a life-saving drug for people who are experiencing opioid overdose, and things like fentanyl test strips. And one of the line items in those kits were also pipes. And the conservative folks on the right, that they ran with that. And the headline was, Joe Biden is giving out crack pipes. And that terrified people enough, despite the fact that the crack epidemic is over, that it almost completely derailed this effort to save people's lives when it comes to fentanyl, which is really ravaging communities across the country. We just haven't learned the lesson, that there's still so much shame, there's so much fear, that we refuse to get right when it comes to the policies. Yeah.
It's a fascinating book, tells the story in many ways of the country back then and now. The new book is called When Crack Was King, A People's History of a Misunderstood Era. Donovan X. Ramsey, thank you so much for bringing it to us. Congrats on the book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Rev, thanks for being here. Great to see you as well.